On, shall we, to Liverpool, who are now 2 points behind the leaders Manchester City in the Premier League table. They rediscovered their missing mojo, as Jurgen Klopp put it, after their recent defeat to Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League. They beat Fulham at Anfield by 2-0. It extends their unbeaten run to this Premier League season. Andrew Beasley of the Liverpool asks a question. He says, a question for you all. What do the goals from this match against Fulham have in common with the following selection? The trio against Southampton, the first three in the win over Red Star, and Sadio Mane's first goal against Cardiff. Any ideas?
Zed and Shaqiri.
Right. The most noteworthy aspect of all these 9 goals is that Liverpool had the quartet of Firmino, Mane, Salah and Shaqiri on the pitch together. So he's asking now, the new Fab Four, anybody? Any realistic comparisons to the Reds' key foursome from the first half of last season? Although we'll have to wait a little longer to make a definitive conclusion. So has he taken, Shaqiri that is, the Philippe Coutinho mantle? And do we have a new Fab Four at Anfield?
Not quite, because they're very different players. Coutinho was, you know, a number 8 that could be a left winger, that could be a number 10. Shaqiri doesn't have the versatility of Coutinho, but he does offer the qualities. He is a difference maker. As soon as he gets the ball, his first thought is, what can I make happen? And he's brave in possession, which behind him in Liverpool's midfield at the moment, there hasn't been any of that. So he's been the catalyst really to all Liverpool's positive moments, especially since Naby Keita got injured, because Liverpool haven't been able to rely on his ball carrying abilities. So as soon as the ball gets to him, you see that front three come alive. And that's what he does share in common with Coutinho. Because you would see Liverpool's attackers change when they saw Coutinho in possession. The movement would be better because they know he's got the ability to deliver a ball. It's incredible because people thought he'd be signed as a bit part player.
Yeah, as an impact substitute.
Yeah, I think he's their most influential player at the moment.
He's forced Klopp to change his formation, hasn't he, into a 4-2-3-1 to accommodate all 4 players. Is he becoming undroppable, Jason?
On this form, he's close to it, isn't he? And I agree. I mean, I think his ability to pick a pass is something that Liverpool haven't had since Coutinho. You know, and as Melissa said, you can see the front three are alive when he's on the ball. I thought it was a good signing. I'm not being wise after the event, but I didn't see any downside to the signing. I mean, he was Stoke's best player by a country mile. He's far too good to be playing at that level. He's a player who's been at Inter Milan and Bayern Munich. He needed to step on, really move on.
Did you honestly think he had the work rate in him, though?
That's the thing, and I think actually he's with the right manager now, because we've seen a little bit of tough love at times from Klopp with him. You know, he's not been averse to doing that, which I quite like in a manager. I think that's what you should be doing. I think you've got to basically try and, you know, push these players as hard as you can. He's got to respond to that. This is a good move for him. This is a great move for him in a career that was basically stagnating to a degree. He needed to really maximise his talent, and he can do that much more at Liverpool than he can obviously at Stoke City down the Championship. So I think it's a really good move, and he's responding well to it. And it does give them that slightly different variation that they probably have lacked for a while.
And you know what's more, I find this quite interesting because of the summer additions, particularly midfield at Liverpool. He is by far the cheapest. I mean, Naby Keita came in for 50 million, Fabinho for 45. Shaqiri comes in for a mere 13. And you could say he has clearly had the bigger impact of all 3 players.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I don't think anyone can argue with that. I would say £13 million was a bargain. Everyone knew it. He's definitely, if there wasn't a relegation release clause and if he was on the market with normal value, you would be paying upwards of £30 million, I think, for him. What staggers me about Shaqiri is he's only 26. I think we forget that because he's been on the scene since he was 17. And when he went to Bayern, he was only 20. He went into a juggernaut, a championship-winning side that didn't really have time to develop him or to give him, you know, to have patience with him. His numbers at Bayern were really good. He went to Inter and played for Mancini, who's not a manager for his unpredictable talents. Mancini, again, didn't really trust him at all. And then he went to Stoke, where he had to be all things to everyone. He was Stoke. He had to win games on his own. And I think the big question mark was whether he could be part of a collective, whether he was too individualistic. And actually, I think his biggest asset at Liverpool has been the ability to assess what the team needs from him, what player he has to be for that, especially for that front three. And he's been the real positive for Liverpool in the last few weeks, when they've been struggling a bit. Liverpool are doing sensationally in terms of their defensive record, number of points they're getting, the fact that they're winning games that they might have struggled to win in past seasons. But they've looked like a faded version of themselves. He's been the bright spark. Actually,
talking of which, Chris Bascombe of the Telegraph actually focuses on Liverpool's defence, because we're always talking about their attacking force, aren't we? He says it's a reflection of Liverpool's season that their latest comfortable victory was greeted with a cop chant acclaiming a defender. This week it was Andy Robertson. It could easily have been Virgil van Dijk. This has been a theme of Liverpool's first 4 months. Injury permitting, Van Dijk will be the club's player of the year. I mean, that's an early shout, but he's not far from the truth. If not the Premier League's, he says. Joe Gomez, who Jurgen Klopp wants to be rested for England, looks an uncanny impersonation of his Dutch partner. And it's funny that, because he also talks about Andy Robertson. But before the Fulham win, and I know you've written about this as well, they have recognised as players and defenders that by keeping it quite tight at the back, it has taken something off their attacking play and the amount of goals that they're racking up. Because Robertson was quoted by Andy Hunter in The Guardian saying, maybe it's not been as good to look at, but we have been effective at it. Maybe we're missing a bit of a spark in terms of not winning 4 or 5-0, but most games. But if Klopp thinks that we need to try to get it back, we'll come together as a team and try to give what the gaffer wants. We'll try and get that spark and try to win games more comfortably. Do you think the players, and I know you've probably spoken to 1 or 2 of them at Liverpool, are they aware that they now have to win games, not just comfortably, but comprehensively, because goal difference is going to be mammoth come May? Yeah,
I don't think they're thinking about goal difference yet. I think what they have accepted is that as well as they have been doing, they're not playing to their capabilities yet, especially in possession. And that's not judging them based off last season when they were flying. That's judging them based on the ability those players have that you've seen not only last season but throughout the course of their careers, or when you know what a Jurgen Klopp side produces. The defensive stability has had an effect on their play because, they're not thinking expansively. They don't have to go and score 3 goals because they're scared the opposition are going to get 2. But they're winning the ball a lot higher up the pitch. Van Dijk and Joe Gomez are stopping counter-attacks before they even materialise. So Liverpool are now not winning the ball in, with the forward players. The defenders are doing that job, which is then cutting out their ability to counter or to punish the opposition's mistakes. Yeah. And without gegenpressing as the playmaker, Liverpool need their midfield to step up, and the absence of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, his dynamism, his ability to cut through, carry the ball up, has been missing. Because Naby Keita was acclimatising and then injured, they've not had a similar type of player, which is why Shaqiri's been the bright light. Yeah. But he's further forward. So you still have that stagnant play between the defence and the midfield.
Fulham, I suppose, gave a pretty decent account of themselves, considering what's gone on beforehand. I mean, 2-0, many thought they were going to get emphatically dispatched. Was it a better performance all round from them?
Definitely, yeah, definitely for them. I mean, obviously, we've seen them be fairly chaotic at times in recent performances, not least, I think, when they lost at home to Arsenal. It just all fell apart, really, and they were reaching a point where you're thinking, look, can they actually even respond, to this league? They were finding it very, very difficult. I think, fundamentally, they've made a massive mistake with the recruitment. I think they've signed far too many players. 12 players came in the summer. It just does not work. There's a critical mass of players that you bring in, which is 3 or 4. Anything beyond that, you're taking a risk, as lots of clubs have found in the past. Tottenham, when they sold Gareth Bale, Liverpool when they sold Luis Suarez, Everton when they splurged a lot of money. It's too much to ask, especially for a team that's coming into the league. You're asking for too much change. And we need to see more continuity in selection from Fulham, because there is talent there. There's undoubted talent. It's whether or not it's gelling. And it's almost like a live experiment. You brought all these players in while the league is going on, and you're thinking, can we make this work? And suddenly you're a dozen games into it, and it's like, well, we're at the bottom, and is anyone really that surprised? Because identity is something we've talked about quite a lot. They've perhaps lost a bit of their identity because they've got so many new players coming in trying to make these combinations work. We just don't know what their best combinations are. And then you've got a coach who's fundamentally wants to play attacking football, but in a league where he's basically trying to put a team together at the same time. It's no wonder they're struggling.
Yeah.
Interesting against Liverpool as well that he decided to betray that attacking philosophy and go more
well, he dropped
defensive.
Seri, didn't he?
Yeah.
He played Callum Chambers, so he had 5 defenders on show.
That tells me that he's starting to worry, and by veering from your philosophy, that's one of the worst things you can do as a manager, because it gives the message to your players that you're not confident in what you've started to preach.
But sometimes you've got to stop the hemorrhaging, haven't you? You've just got to stop the...
You
give yourself a chance.
Yeah, you do. And I thought they actually, acquitted themselves quite well. Liverpool had 2 sixes, a double pivot, and yet they still found openings in the first half. They were unlucky not to score. They should have done better with their chances. Obviously, the debatable offside call. But I've seen Fulham play the Arsenal game. I think there was like the first 20 minutes where I watched it and I thought, how on earth are they not at least 2-0 up? I've seen them play really, really, really well in patches. And I think their biggest thing is to learn how to protect their own offences. Once they figure out that organisation, they'll actually be quite decent.
It's always a question to be asked when you head into an international break, particularly when there are sides struggling at the bottom. Is now the time that they might make a change? And Alan Shearer has written about this in his column on the BBC website. He talks about how Jokanovic has a track record of getting things right eventually, but he does have slow starts. Because last November, and this is something that hasn't really been spoken about a great deal, the Cottagers were 17th in the Championship after winning only 4 of their first 17 games. But then, of course, they went on to win promotion.